In a world that often values perfection and control, there are lives lived in constant motion not by choice, but by an uncontrollable force. What if the body you live in was a constant surprise, moving, twitching, and making noises you never asked for? Imagine this happening while the world watches, expecting only your brightest smile. This is Baylen's reality, a young woman whose life with Tourette syndrome reveals a side of human strength most never see. Today, we go beyond the surface, into the secrets her journey holds, the moments hidden away from the cameras. From early childhood, Baylen's body spoke a language she couldn't yet decipher: sudden twitches, unexpected sounds, involuntary movements that others might overlook but she could never ignore. For years, these signs were just part of her world, something she thought was normal, like many children might. But as she approached adulthood, those simple movements grew into a constant companion, shaping every moment of her life. Diagnosed just before her 18th birthday, Baylen found herself thrust into a new reality, one of not just coping, but of living boldly and publicly with Tourette's. Her story is more than a tale of diagnosis or symptoms. It's a story about resilience, about finding a voice when the world expects silence, and about the courage to embrace a life that defies expectations. Join us as we go inside Baylen's journey, beyond what the cameras show and into the secrets no one told you. In those early years, Baylen's movements told a story before she had the words to explain. What seemed at first like simple habits, rapid blinking, occasional head jerks, and shoulder shrugs, were actually the very first signs of Tourette's syndrome. These involuntary movements, called motor tics, often started almost unnoticed, blending into the innocent fidgeting of childhood. Alongside these were sounds she couldn't control: gentle throat clearing, soft grunting, sometimes random noises that sprang from nowhere. In those moments, a child's world can feel confusing and isolating: a body moving on its own, a voice interrupting when it shouldn't. Her family watched with concern but didn't fully understand the challenge ahead. Like many parents, they hoped the twitches and sounds were just phases, fleeting quirks of growing up. As time passed, the tics grew more frequent, more complex. What started as small, simple movements turned into a constant companion Baylen could never ignore. School days became a battleground of trying to sit still and be normal while her body rebelled against her will. Yet, despite these daily struggles, there was no immediate answer. The early signs can be easily mistaken for nervous habits, sometimes dismissed by teachers or even doctors. It wasn't until her preteen years, around age 10, that the full picture began to emerge. The tics became impossible to overlook and were joined by vocal tics, sudden sounds, repeated phrases, and disruptions that frightened and confused her. Through this period, anxiety and stress often made the tics worse, turning routine activities into challenges she wished she could escape. Families facing these early stages know this well: the frustration, the helplessness of watching a loved one fight an invisible battle they can't control. For Baylen, these years laid the foundation of a journey that was still just beginning, a journey that would teach her strength in the face of uncertainty and the courage to share her truth with the world. As Baylen moved through her late teens, the world began to see her in a new light, not just as someone living with Tourette's, but as a vibrant voice willing to share her story. It started with simple videos posted on social media, candid glimpses of the everyday reality behind her tics. What began as a way to educate and connect quickly blossomed into something much bigger. Her genuine humor, unfiltered honesty, and courageous openness captured the attention of millions. Followers came not just to witness her challenges, but to celebrate her spirit. With every post, Baylen demystified the condition, showing that Tourette's wasn't a limitation but a part of her unique story. Yet the more eyes that watched, the heavier the spotlight grew. There were moments of joy, where fans sent messages of encouragement, sharing how her bravery inspired their own journeys. But there was also a darker side: criticism, disbelief, and the relentless trolls questioning the authenticity of her struggles. Through it all, Baylen remained steadfast. She learned to respond with grace, understanding that while she couldn't control others' reactions, she could control her own story. Fame was a double-edged sword. It expanded her platform to advocate, but it also amplified the daily battles she fought just out of frame. For Baylen, going viral wasn't just about social media likes, it was about breaking the silence and reclaiming her narrative to the outside world. Baylen was a shining light, full of energy, humor, and a rare kind of bravery that inspired thousands. Her smile was infectious, her laughter genuine, and her presence magnetic. Thousands of fans saw only the surface, a young woman who conquered her challenges with grace and humor. But behind the lens, away from the flashing cameras and adoring fans, a different and far darker story was unfolding. The laughter often masked the pain. The twitches and vocal tics that seemed manageable on camera were, in truth, unpredictable and overwhelming in her private moments. When the world wasn't watching, Baylen's body moved in ways she could hardly control. There were times when the physical toll of the tics left her drained, embarrassed, and trapped in her own skin. But it wasn't just the physical symptoms she battled. What no one saw was the avalanche of anxiety that pressed down on her chest every morning. A nagging fear of failure, a relentless worry about disappointing others, and a profound loneliness that settled deep inside even in the midst of a crowd. Depression, a silent partner to her, Tourette's crept in slowly but firmly, dimming the light that so many adored. The burden of being expected to educate, to entertain, and to be an example was heavier than any teenager should have to bear. Each day became a tightrope walk, balancing the need to show strength with the need to be human, to allow herself moments of vulnerability without fear of judgment. The cameras only caught what was scripted or chosen to be shared. They captured the jokes, the stories, the moments of triumph, but they missed the private tears, the nights spent wrestling with despair, and the sense of isolation that too many people with chronic conditions know all too well. Behind every smile was a fight against invisibility, not just from Tourette's but from the mental health struggles it often accompanied. The gap between the public image and private reality widened, creating a chasm of unspoken pain. Baylen's story reminds us that behind every inspiring figure is a human being with fears, flaws, and the need for compassion. Surviving this hidden struggle demanded a courage far beyond what anyone else could see. There comes a moment in every journey when hope feels stretched thin, when the weight of the world becomes unbearable. For Baylen, that moment arrived quietly but with devastating clarity. The relentless pressure to be perfect, to maintain her role as an advocate, entertainer, and symbol of strength began to crush the very spirit it once celebrated. The demands of constant filming, public appearances, and social media engagement left her drained beyond words. Inside, a storm was raging. The anxiety spiraled, the depression deepened, and the tics became more uncontrollable. Every day felt like walking through a storm without shelter, a storm made of expectations, fears, and an overwhelming sense of loneliness. It was during these darkest days that Baylen reached out to those closest to her, the ones who had stood by her since the beginning, her family, her fiancé, those who had witnessed both her brightest and bleakest moments. "I couldn't keep going," she would later say. "The pain was too much. I didn't want to be alive anymore." These words, spoken with heartbreaking honesty, revealed the depth of her despair, words that echoed the secret struggles of so many who suffer in silence. Her loved ones acted immediately, refusing to let her face this fight alone. Their support became her lifeline, a beacon in the night that guided her through the darkest hours. This crisis was not a sign of failure, but a powerful reminder the human mind and heart have limits, and even the strongest among us need help. Facing this breaking point marked a pivotal moment in Baylen's journey, one that forced her to confront her vulnerabilities and seek the care she desperately needed. It was a turning point that would reshape her path forever, not by erasing her pain, but by learning to live alongside it with courage and support. Recovery is rarely a straight line, and Baylen's journey back from the brink was no different. It was filled with small, sometimes invisible steps forward and inevitable setbacks that tested her determination. With the unwavering support of her family and her fiancé, Baylen began to explore new paths to healing. Therapy sessions became a safe space where she could untangle painful memories, confront fears, and rebuild her strength piece by piece. She learned that healing is not about perfection, but about acceptance of her condition, her limits, and most importantly, herself. A powerful lesson emerged. Setting boundaries was not selfish, but necessary. For years, Baylen had felt the need to share every detail of her life to educate and inspire. Now, she realized it was okay to protect parts of herself, to keep some things private and prioritize her well-being. This shift in perspective slowly lifted the heavy burden of constant performance. She began to understand that her value wasn't defined by how well she managed her Tourette's in front of the world, but by her courage to embrace her whole, imperfect self. Medication, mindfulness practices, and tailored coping strategies helped Baylen manage her symptoms more effectively. Each day brought new tools to navigate life's challenges with greater ease. Perhaps most importantly, Baylen discovered that true strength lies not in never falling, but in choosing to rise again time and time again. Through this process, she also deepened her connection with her fiancé, who stood steadfastly by her side, offering love unconditionally, reminding her she was never alone in her fight. Recovery was not a destination, but an ongoing journey, one filled with hope, resilience, and the promise of new beginnings. From the depths of struggle emerged a powerful voice, not just for herself, but for countless others facing similar challenges. Baylen's courage to share her story in all its complexity sparked a movement of understanding and compassion. Her openness about living with Tourette's and mental health struggles broke down barriers of stigma and silence. She showed the world that having a neurological condition doesn't define a person's worth or limit their dreams. Through advocacy, Baylen transformed her pain into purpose, becoming a beacon of hope for those feeling unseen or unheard. She reminded us all that vulnerability is not weakness, it is the foundation of true strength. Her story encouraged vital conversations about mental health, inspiring others to seek help, share their own experiences, and embrace their unique journeys. In a world hungry for authenticity, Baylen's honesty was a breath of fresh air, a reminder that everyone deserves empathy, understanding, and support. Her journey continues, not as a tale of mere survival, but as one of thriving, leading with heart and courage in the face of adversity. Baylen's message is clear: no matter the challenge, no one has to face it alone. Together, through love, support, and openness, healing is possible. Baylen's story is a powerful reminder that behind every smile is a journey, often filled with unseen battles and incredible courage. If her journey moved you, if it made you think, feel, or reflect, there's one thing left to do. Hit that like button and subscribe to Witty Thinkers for more stories that challenge the ordinary and uncover the extraordinary truths behind the people we think we know. Got thoughts, experiences, or just some witty wisdom of your own? Drop a comment below. We love hearing from this brilliant community. And hey, don't forget to share this video, because sometimes the best way to support someone is by shining a light on stories that need to be told. Until next time, keep thinking deeply, laughing freely, and caring fiercely. This is Witty Thinkers, signing off.